Hello and welcome to the Marketing Mix. Today we're talking all things video. My guest is Matt Wareham, and he's going to share some of his video expertise, advice and tips. Now, putting yourself on camera is, especially as a small business owner, it's a huge deal. And I know I've talked to lots of people since I've been running my business. A lot of my coaching clients really feel nervous about getting on video. But I know that Matt is going to arm us with some really good tips and advice today to make it that much easier. And video is it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So it's one of the formats that really gets a lot of engagement and can help you to promote your business quite effectively. So you're going to be a pro in no time with Matt's tips. Matt, just tell us a little bit about what got you started with your business.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And you're right. I think video is here to stay. I think that the form that takes might change over time, but it's here to stay. I got started because I worked doing video for a big broadcaster, doing news, doing current affairs, and then ultimately making documentaries that were focused towards young people. I did that job for quite a long time. And then I wanted to do something a bit different. I wanted a bit of a change. And I ended up deciding to take the leap to leave doing that. Initially, I thought I might just sort of freelance doing that to carry on. But actually, I decided, do you know what? I wanted to do something a bit more me. So I decided that I would take the things that I'd learned through the storytelling that basically I'd learned through working in TV and take that to apply it to using that in corporate videos, charity videos, and helping small businesses and some large businesses as well in trying to get their story across in a way that, using the same tactics that we use for doing it in a broadcast way.
And Matt and I, when did we meet? Was it last year, the year before? We met because I had an email marketing workshop that I invited Matt to, and that's how we got to know each other. But it's been quite a fruitful relationship, I feel. So we've touched upon the fact that video is here to stay, it's not going anywhere. But why else should small businesses be using video in their marketing?
So I'd say that video is the next best thing to speaking to someone face to face if you want to communicate with them well. And there's no other form of communication you can have where you can see someone and hear them and feel like you know them a bit without having that face-to-face interaction. Now, you can't personally speak to every single person that comes to your Instagram account or comes to your website. I hope not, at least. I hope you've got enough traffic to the website. That means you can't have an individual conversation with all those people. And if you take a website, actually, it's a good example. The other thing that's really good about video is a 3-minute video would equate to roughly 500 words of text. Now, if you go to a website, are you going to read 500 words of text? Probably not. If you think my own sort of website browsing habits, you go to the website, you scroll, you look at the headlines, and then you sort of cobble together whether you think it's worth any more of your attention based on that sort of initial sort of scrolling through, but you're not reading it from the start to the bottom. And I think if anyone thinks that people do that on their websites, they're probably kidding themselves. But with a video, people will start watching it from the start. They may not get to the end, but they will at least watch it in order. So you've also got the ability to control what people hear and see, but the information they get is coming in a way that you're controlling it in the way that is, the most important stuff first, really. So I think it helps build rapport. It helps people feel like they know you before they actually do know you, but it also can really help with engagement on your website if that's something that you want to keep people on your website. And there are statistics around about how a video on the homepage of a website will increase how long people spend on the website, which is obviously a good thing. It means they're taking more in. And that is really the two things that actually I think are best for small businesses are a website, an overview video on your website, hero video, whatever you want to call it, a video that says, this is who I am, you're the face of it probably, and says, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is who I do it for, really sets that out clearly. But then also social media is the other place where video is really useful for small businesses. They're two different things to tackle, really, because with your website video, you've got longevity. You probably only need to update that once a year, once every 2 years. Like, you don't want it to make it look like, you don't want people to see it and go, oh, that was a long time ago. But equally, unless you're changing your offer a lot, you probably don't need to update it that often. But with social media, it's more about little and often, because, if you post something today, by next week, the chance of someone seeing it is quite low. So, I think, putting it into one sentence is the best way of communicating with people, other than having that face-to-face conversation with them.
But interesting you say that, because I had a session with a coaching client yesterday, and she was very excited. It was my last session with her, very excited, and she said, I figured out where my email sign-ups come up from. And I said, oh, tell me. She's like, when I've had a conversation with people. I'm like, that's really interesting. I said, but how are you going to scale that? You can't have conversations with hundreds of people. What are you going to do to scale that? And she scratched her head, and I said, well, video. And she went, oh no. But that is the thing, is that's and I find the same thing, is that people work with me once they've experienced me, and quite a lot of the times it's through a video.
Yeah, and it's quite hard to experience someone fully, even if you've got a photo as a profile and a bit of text down the side. You don't really feel like you know that person, and often it depends how that text is written, but the text might not even give your, it's very hard to get your personality across in written form with a photo. So yeah, I think for most people that's true. I think, there might be a handful of businesses where they only need so few leads and so few clients that it is possible to have a conversation with everybody you want to sign up to your email list, but that means your email list is going to stay very small. So for nearly everybody, it makes sense to try and scale that. And it will the conversion rate from a video be the same as a face-to-face interaction? Maybe not quite as good, but it'll be a lot better than if you just have face-to-face interactions which are doing really well, and a bit of text on the website that says please sign up.
Yeah. So we've convinced people that they should be using videos to market their small businesses. So what basic equipment can they start off with that isn't going to break the bank?
Yeah, don't get hung up on the kit is what I would say to most people. Unless you're sort of living in the dark ages, you probably have a phone, which is pretty good. And actually, the amount of money you'd need to spend to get something better than a phone, I would say to start with, it's probably not worth it if you're making videos yourself. There are a couple of things you can do to improve how the video out of your phone appears, and I would say the first two things to think of are the sound, and getting yourself either a small lapel mic, or we use a sort of big one here, but you don't have to do that. But thinking about the sound, and also thinking about the lighting, and that can just be something as simple as putting a window like there in front of you and the desk up against the window, so you've got good light towards the front, and not don't put the light behind you. But you can buy a ring light or something like that quite cheaply off of Amazon or anywhere else, and those are the two things which will probably, the picture is the thing that your phone will be good at, and the lighting and the sound are the two things that you might want to consider. I'd say as well, think of things that might make your life easier. So sometimes people come up with a great setup with their home office or something and spent half the day tidying it. It's like, do you want to do that every single time you do a video? Probably not. So think of whether there's a place that's either always tidy or don't require much tidying, or like you've done, or because the thing is, if you're doing it and you're like, oh, it looks lovely, being able to see everything, that all these things in the background, that could either cause you to spend more time than you need to making it, or it gives you an excuse for procrastination of not doing it because you spend more time tidying than making a video.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing is, it does depend on your business. So I think if your business is something, I don't know, say like a salon or a nail bar or something like that, the sort of classic things where say actually something a bit more raw works really well. You might want to take selfie videos in your business, and that is in keeping the sort of roughness to it is part of the, you know, the ability for you to turn it around quickly. It's your personality that comes across. If you're an accountant or financial advisor or something like that, you probably don't want a video that looks like that, because that's not your brand image. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend a lot of money on it. It just means thinking about where you do it, and also a few little things you can do to elevate the quality. But I would say start with your phone, start with a microphone that can plug into your phone so that they're connected together. And if you can, think of the lighting. And they're, you know, if you do all of those three things to an okay level, you will be on your way to starting without it becoming a massive burden to think of the technicals. I suppose the other.
I actually. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say the little thing that that some people like, and I don't recommend it too much to people, is a teleprompter, and that it can help if you're in an industry where you want to be word perfect. So if you've got you know, finance industry or something like that, where you want to make sure you don't slip up, or you just want to do videos with loads of text, they're not that expensive. They normally use a phone or an iPad to go with them. But I'd say starting out, you probably don't need that. Just start is probably the best way.
Yeah, and I bought a relatively inexpensive tripod. I'm pointing here because that's what my webcam is on. But that really helps as well, because it's got this bracket that fits a mobile phone in, which means that I can do vertical or horizontal videos using my phone. So I thought that a fairly inexpensive tripod really helps me as well.
Yeah, and you can get stuff that comes. So in fact, only yesterday, for a client shoot later this week that they want to do themselves, we spent £35 on a ring light, which comes with the phone holder that goes in the middle of the ring light and comes with a tripod as well. It wouldn't, you know, it's not going to stand up to being thrown around in the back of a van and lobbed about in, you know, that way. But as a starter kit, it's £35.
I know, and that's not to get a nice looking video. It's not a lot of money, and if you're going to keep doing more of those videos, it's actually going to pay for itself.
Exactly. It doesn't need to cost thousands of pounds or even hundreds of pounds. You can, you know, for less than £100, you can get yourself set up with something that looks and sounds good.
Yeah.
Assuming
I actually broke my original. Sorry.
Assuming that you've already got a phone that's.
Yeah. So I actually broke my original tripod, so I ended up buying a new one. But I think in lockdown I bought this webcam. I keep pointing here because that's what it is. I bought this webcam, and I think a webcam, a tripod, I've got lapel mics. Those three things together, I don't think cost me more than £70. So you know, it's doable, and it does work, and it's good to have good sound as well. I'm thinking of soundproofing, but buffering this room a bit more, because it does sound a bit echoey. So I'm thinking of on the wall that I've got there that's blank, of putting something up there that makes it less echoey. But so they've got their basic equipment. What prep should you be doing before you start recording?
So I'd say there's a sort of double-edged question here. So I'd say you want to do some prep, but don't go down the rabbit hole of prepping so much that you never get anything done, because the main thing is getting started. Guaranteed, if you look back after 2 years of making content regularly, if you look back at the first stuff you did, you'll hate it. So, but you just have to get through that stage. So in terms of prep, I'd say do prep to get a clear strategy in place, because I think that's important, and will determine whether your videos perform well enough for you to want to carry on doing them anyway. But don't over prep. You know, if you get to a point where your prep involves curating like every author on a bookshelf behind you, and you know, things like that, that's procrastination, not preparation, really.
Yeah.
So, but actually, the type of prep that I would suggest is the same as you would probably suggest for any marketing. It starts with, you know, looking at what is your offer, what is it that you want to get across to people, then look at your ideal client, and then reverse engineering the content that you make so that it actually appeals to them and that it isn't all about you. That's, you know, I think, and this is stuff that, you know, I'm sure you've said this to me before about emails, and it's stuff that, you know, it's not new, but I think it's sort of marketing basics that work is, you know, start with what you want people to do and what you want the what you think your ideal client would want, and then work backwards. And then, you know, I say that a lot of the time, if you want to come up with ideas for what your content should be to start with, it's think about the questions that people ask you all the time. And the way that I've helped some people do that to start with is like, just start a note in your phone. And then every time you get asked a question that is a question that you know that you either get asked loads or you know that someone else would like to know the answer to, then just write it down in there. Now, by ones off the top of your head and collecting them as you go along, I'd be surprised if within a week you didn't have 25 of them.
Absolutely.
And then you can think of quite short little answers that go with them, and that makes a whole bank of video content, in especially within a sort of social space where you want, you know, brevity is key. And then you can record all of those in one go, and then you've got enough content. You know, if you do it, say you get 20, you do 2 a week, that's 10 weeks worth of content straight off the bat. And that'll lead, then you'll see which ones work as well. The thing is, you don't want to do too much at the start. You don't want to prep. I'd be cautious against saying, you know, prep out a year's worth of content for your videos right from the start, because you'll see what you like making, which will impact, you know, what you want to make further going forward. You might also find that some of the stuff that you've done causes you a headache later on. So if you decide that your heavily scripted way of working that you come up with to start with then means that you spend so long editing it that it becomes, you know, I'm spending 5 times as long editing something as it took me to record it, and it still looks quite simple, you might decide after doing that once or twice, actually, I just want to freestyle it a bit more. But you know, that comes from a bit of experience. So I wouldn't over prep too much, but I would have a strategy and, you know, make sure that the targeting is right, and maybe, go for something like, you know, 2 to 3 months worth of prep in terms of nailing what you think people will want from that target audience, and then see where you go. And I suppose the key step then is to make sure that you've got the sort of loop back where you're looking to see what has done well, what has completely flopped, what's got people commenting as well as views, you know, what's actually engaged people.
This is my I was recording some constant contact tutorials this morning. Part of my prep before I sat down and actually did was like, right, what's the list of things that I normally get asked about constant contact?
Well, there we go.
That's my list, and I've done most of them. And I need to finish off a couple more, but now they're ready to be captioned, and then I've got content that I can share in amongst everything else that I put out. But I have to say that I think it's because I don't particularly enjoy watching videos for learning. I prefer to read, and that's what I prefer to do is write. But I know that that people in my audience don't necessarily want to read; they want to watch things as well.
Yeah, and I suppose you can use the same content often across both, can't you? So what you've written will form the basis of a script for something you can say. But there's no harm in it, because, you know, the likelihood is that people will have a preference, and they won't, you know, unless they're a super fan, they're unlikely to read and watch every single thing that you do. I think as well, there's with any of these things, there's a sort of, you want, especially when it's your business, you lean towards perfection for everything, and that can cause stuff just not to get done. I think there's an extra layer, especially when you first start, if it's your face and voice on camera, for you to be very picky about, oh, I don't look quite right, my hair's not quite right, is my tie straight, if whatever. Like all of these things can build up to like blocks that make it quite hard to get stuff done. And actually it's one of those times where you sometimes have to take a step back and go, done is better than perfect. And, you know, to start with, the same as anything, when you launch something new, if you're doing it in an organic way on social media, it's probably not going to, you know, unless you already have a big audience elsewhere, it's unlikely to, you know, have thousands of views straight off the bat. But what you need to start, you know, it's the same as starting an email list. You need to start from having nobody on the list, because that the only way to get people is to start, right?
Absolutely. So you've done your prep. What are your tips for making impactful videos that people actually want to watch?
So my thing is telling people to follow a structure that works, in a formula that works. And I have a worksheet that's about that, which you get if you sign up to my email list. So there we go.
I'll put that link in the comments.
You can drop a link later. This is the worksheet, and but it basically splits it down into three things. It's start with a strong hook, which basically means make me want to carry on past the first 1.5 or 2 seconds of your video. So often for videos which are being done as a sort of direct to camera piece, the social media is the simplest type to make. That is, what you say at the start needs to be the most impactful. Now you can make that even more impactful by putting large text or something at the start to really hammer it home, especially with people who are not watching with sound. But you're looking for something that's going to make people really want to watch it, and that will vary depending on who your audience is, depending on what it is you're selling. But things that tend to work well there are an intriguing question, and then people naturally want to know what the answer is going to be. Something that resonates with them in that sense, you know, a question that they will have, so therefore they want to find out the answer. A statistic or something along those lines which can shock them a bit. So, you know, I'll give some examples in a second, actually, of this, or something that's sort of tugs on the emotional side also works quite well. So I have some written down which I've seen recently. So, you know, this one's from an American like influencer, but it says, what if there was a way to double your productivity without working longer hours? Which is a bit cheesy and it fits with their sort of style, but you can see what they're doing. They're trying to appeal to people who are thinking, yeah, I don't want to work as many hours as I do because I'm knackered. This is one that I've used to start presentations before, where it says half of Gen Z say they'd search TikTok for the answer to a question before they Google it. And then you want to find out why and more about that, or at least it makes you realize that this is something that's important. And then the other sort of emotional ones, this is from the start of a charity video. It says, imagine a world where no child goes to bed hungry. And then that leads them into that. So the hook has to be really quick. You know, we're talking 3 seconds potentially at the start to get people to start watching. And then use that middle bit to try and create some empathy with your audience. So, you know, step 2, create some empathy and explain what it is. You know, that's the sort of meat of your video. So keep it as concise as possible. But this is where you get to, like, you know, tell a story or really sell. And then at the end, that's where you need to give people a call to action, tell them what you want them to do next, because you can come up with something that looks amazing, hooks people in at the start, and if you don't tell people what you want them to do next, then they won't do anything. They, you know, even if they really liked it, and this is especially so for people who are, you know, small businesses doing service-based businesses, you might just see something, oh, that looks cool, and then you do nothing with it. Product videos tend to be a bit different, but yeah, for services, it's so easy to just sort of highlight something that's cool about your business, but then never say, do you want it? And I suppose the thing to bear in mind with the call to action at the end is the lower the bar, the more likely it is that someone's going to do it. So if it finishes by you saying, book a call now to spend £30,000 on a kitchen extension, you're probably not going to get a great number of people saying yes. But if you say, click, swipe up or click through to get a worksheet which tells you this, or gets a free something, or invites them to join your email list. Anything that's fairly quick, easy, and like a couple of clicks is
Yeah.
much more likely to yield results.
Yeah.
But if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think
Absolutely.
that's one of the things that people do forget sometimes with social videos, is that, and you need to do it every single time? Maybe not, but you need to make sure that there's enough times that people see your content where they at least know what they need to do if they do want it.
Yeah. Cool. And so that leads us nicely onto pitfalls. So what are some common pitfalls that people should avoid? That's difficult to say.
So some of those are the opposite to what we've been saying, aren't they? No call to action. I think a lot of the time you see, rather than having a really concise and well-formed hook at the start, it's the sort of video that dribbles in the hello, thank you for checking out my video, but 8 seconds in, we've not really started. We've just said hello, welcome back, thank you. Or sometimes you can get 10-15 seconds to a video and like, I don't really know what the point of it is. I don't really know what it is that you're trying to solve for me or trying to sell me. And of course, no call to action is another one. I think the other thing that we see is that there can sometimes be an obsession with going viral, and that going viral and getting lots of views will be the key to solving all the problems. And actually, spoiler, it won't. And I've made videos that have got more than 1 million views on Instagram, but what actually happens as a result of that isn't loads of people go out and buy something, or even things which are free. So there are people who've got someone I was speaking to a few weeks ago who they got more than 1 million views on TikTok, so that's a great milestone for them, for one of their clips from a podcast. And when they went into their podcast platform to look at the stats to see how this had impacted their subscribers and their downloads, it hadn't really made any difference at all.
I find it crazy that as marketers we still talk about these metrics as it went viral, I've got 1 million views, I've got this, that, the other, when really what should be important is what action did it result in. And even if you only got 10 views on a video, but 2 of those people contacted you to work with you, to me that's a big success.
100%. And I think if we're talking large numbers, especially for smaller businesses, the large numbers are never going to, that means that nearly everybody is not going to be a customer. And actually, it would be a problem if they turned out to be. But it's still something people like, the idea of large numbers. But actually, it's the same as we've had this conversation about email lists. If I had 50,000 people on my email list, but it's people that I bought off a dodgy database, and none of them are actually like, what's the point? I'm much better off having 1/10 of that number, but they're all people who are my ideal clients. I think that's definitely something in terms of the strategy that can be problematic. And I think it knocks on to people being upset when their videos don't do really large numbers. But actually that doesn't really matter as long as it's reaching relevant people who are a good fit. I think trying to do too much to start with can be a problem as well. And you might want to try and make stuff that looks really, really polished, have loads of effects, or be very cleverly made in a way that involves, you cut out and looking over your own shoulder, and sort of, but that is going to increase how long it takes you to make stuff. And it is something that maybe over time is a better idea, but go for getting stuff done and published rather than a pile of and that means getting started is the most important thing, but that means getting started in terms of having some sort of strategy, writing, coming up with the questions you want to answer, or some sort of script, whatever it is your content is, recording it, editing it, and actually publishing it as well. Because getting stuck at, I've got someone contacted me the other week to say, would I be a guest on their podcast? And he said, I've got 230 episodes recorded and I've already released 15. And so, well, no, why would I want to be on your podcast? I said to him, it's like, if you're releasing them one a week, it's like, there's already like nearly a 3-year backlog. But so that suggests that he likes the recording process a lot more than he likes the editing and the publishing process, right? And you need to do all of those things. And I think the other thing that's important, if it's a small business and you're the face of your business, is don't try and be too polished, and don't try and be someone that you're not. So you hear the word authentic used a lot at the moment, but I think there's a reason why. And I think as things at the moment, we're in a space where there's so much AI being used in various forms. The best thing that you can do to make your stuff seem real is to be real. Now that could be being real about it ourselves. You want that to be the best version of yourself and not the 7 a.m. Monday morning grouchy version of yourself. But you don't need to try and become like a cheesy Saturday night TV presenter if that's not who you are. If that is who you are, then that's fine. If people know you as that person, but don't put on a performance. Seen it all. People who suddenly have a posh accent or ditch their voice is totally different. I suppose it's the modern day equivalent of people having the phone voice, isn't it?
The phone voice.
But so it's be authentic with it, and but in a way that's manageable and sustainable, because the way to make a social strategy especially work is to do little and often over time, and have a sort of a self-feedback loop where you just are aware of what it is that's doing well, what it is that's getting engagement, and then doing more of that. And even if you really love talking about certain things in your business, but they're not landing well, don't do as much of that, at least, and you're probably going to end up with some pillars of content, which are, this is what we do, maybe some behind the scenes content, and then, answering FAQs or something like that. It's quite hard with broad, depending on, what business it is. But if it turns out, that the behind the scenes content is doing really, really well, then, do more of that, show people more of that. But if it turns out your behind the scenes content is not doing well, and that's either because the industry you're in, it's boring, or because the audience for your industry just doesn't like it, then, scale that back. That's, I think plowing on with what you think's right and making it all about you, it's another pitfall as well. It's like, me, this is what my business has been doing. Or the sort of vlog style updates where it's like, this is what we've been up to for the last week.
No one cares.
You probably don't care. You probably don't even care by the time you edit it.
A couple of people that I've talked to saying about, when people send emails, they send newsletters, and you've read about 3 paragraphs of what they've been up to before you get to the point of what the email is. And
and sometimes it's not even relevant, is it? No. It's, I was like, oh, you've been to a christening and it was your dad's birthday, but that's not the most exciting thing about this, whatever it is the company was supposed to be sending you a newsletter about. So I think that's, the pitfalls often are procrastinating too much and obsessing about things being perfect, or obsessing about the wrong type of metric of whether it's being successful or not. But the thing is, if that's already the situation you find yourself in, it's easy to put that right. You just need to sort of refocus it a bit. But the number one thing that you see a lot is just sort of failure to get off the starting block, really, because not thinking that you're going to be happy with what the video's like to start with. But all of the skills, the thing is, all of the skills will get better over time, but you can only make them better over time. And that is how you appear and how you perform. But also, you'll get better at filming stuff. You'll get better at editing stuff, get a lot quicker at editing stuff over time. And you'll start to, you know, learn where are the best places to record this stuff. You know, what I feel most comfortable doing in terms of, do I need a script? Do I just need some bullet points? How, you know, how's the best way of working? But unless you start, you also have the risk of building up in something it's not if you procrastinate for too long. You know, it doesn't have to be any harder than writing an email on a website, you know.
Everything that you've told us today should get people started. And with that, we have run out of time. Thank you, Matt. It's been really interesting to learn, like, just the basics. I mean, I've been putting videos together for a while, but still, you said some things that I thought, oh, maybe I should do that. So it's every day's a school day, as they say. I'm just going to pop a link into the comments for Matt's newsletter. I get it every month, and I've picked up tips about doing videos because I'm not a video expert. So please do sign up for that. And it's a very nice, easygoing newsletter. And I particularly love when you pull out the videos that you think are really good. So something for you to emulate. And of course, if you're not in the Marketing Morsel Club, why not? Why aren't you there? You need to join. It's free. It's free to join. It's my weekly newsletter, plus more things. And it's, you know, it's designed to help you to really make inroads with your email marketing. So there's a link in the comments for that. But thank you for joining me today, Matt. In 2 weeks' time, I've got Tatenda Mustvario. I need to see if I pronounced that correctly. She's joining me as a guest, and we're going to be talking all things about setting up and running your own workshop. And we've talked about how people can experience you in person. Workshops are one way of doing that. And she's a mine of information. That's what her business is set up to do. So she's going to share her expert tips on how you can do that. Matt, thank you very much for sharing your advice. And I will catch everyone in 2 weeks' time. Take care.